the Ottawa Hospital Foundation and the Ottawa Hospital have been doing incredible work during this time of the pandemic. And I wanted to spend some time today with Tim Kluke, the president and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. How are you, Tim?
Doing great, Sam. How are you today?
I'm great. It's been an opportunity, certainly for, I think, all of us to really reflect on the importance of the healthcare system as a whole. But really, I think about the Ottawa Hospital, and, you've just been at the forefront of so many different initiatives regarding COVID-19.
It really has been incredible. And as we start to see us all going back to, I don't know what the new normal is, but things are becoming a bit more normal. But COVID is still there, right? And our hospital is at the kind of the pointy end of that stick in our community, just given our role at the Ottawa Hospital. But what I would say is the community has been tremendous from a foundation's perspective. If we all look back to kind of spring 2020 when COVID first hit Ottawa, and we had an outpouring of support at the Ottawa Hospital from the community. Whether it's ensuring our frontline staff were fed, had PPE, and also the community provided much needed donations to advance COVID research and patient care. And the community has been excellent, of course. Our staff, our nurses, our physicians, our orderlies, you name it, everybody has been working full out with COVID, and as much, where there were patients in the hospital, but it was also, wondering at what point are we perhaps going to see, a bump in cases, and we had to be ready for that as well. But the team at the Ottawa Hospital has been ready. They've been at the forefront of that and have I think, just, done such a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think if you're anything like me, Tim, I would hear, the phrase third wave, and I would be like, wow, I never thought we'd get here. And then we'd hear fourth wave, and I'm like, what? So I think this has been a big learning curve for so many of us. But we know the Ottawa Hospital, as you said, was prepared.
Yeah, it was prepared, and it's been a learning opportunity. It's a learning opportunity for all of us in the community, but a learning opportunity for the hospital. Even as we, down the road plan to build a new hospital to replace the Civic, some of our learnings through COVID have assisted in our plans around that new hospital. But if you think of response from the community, and when we launched our emergency response fund for COVID, the community quickly contributed about $2 million. And just because of our specialized expertise at the Ottawa Hospital, where we are one of the few sites, handful of hospitals in Canada that can manufacture vaccines. So we were able to take that $2 million and leverage it with other government support to $15 million. And they're actually funding 60 COVID research projects. And when we first started to do this work, people said, well, why are you continuing to do research? And I think what we've recognized through this is the variants that have come along. So we need to continue to do research into COVID, and we are having great success with a number of made in Ottawa solutions.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I think about, the monies that people donated that you were referring to. It's almost like, they were helping to set a foundation for the foundation, and in turn for the hospital and researchers and physicians to do incredible work.
Absolutely. And know that community support is appreciated by the staff at the Ottawa Hospital. You drive by today, there are still signs on the front lawn and around. Some signs have been there a long time from the community thanking our frontline workers for the work that they've done. Many of them, of course, have foregone vacations or time off. It's been hard, obviously, for us to take vacations, but they have foregone taking time off to be with their families, just given, some of the challenges even with staffing in hospitals today, but also ensuring, that our COVID patients are cared for, that we're also building capacity in other areas, whether it be surgery and other services. So our staff continue to work full out as they did when COVID first hit 18 months ago.
And it's such an important point when you talk about the thanks we have for the Ottawa Hospital and, of course, all the people behind the hospital. And I noticed, as you did, some of those signs. And I understand there's a great campaign entitled thankyouTOH.ca. And we can visit there and really actually give a shout out to somebody that has supported us.
Absolutely. So great mention. Thank you. TOH.ca is a new website where people can make both a contribution, but you can find information on a special program that we have called a Gratitude Award program, where individuals can make a donation and recognize a member of the hospital team with a Gratitude Award pin. And, the staff members wear these pins with pride, but it's a great way for the community to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you've got such an interesting role, of course, as president and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. You would have the chance, Tim, to really have relationships with donors that you've known for years, but then you have the opportunity to maybe connect with a donor that is brand new to the hospital and to the foundation. That's just such an interesting thing to me. People that have been supporting for years, but yet somebody brand new to the hospital that decides today's the day I'm going to recognize and thank the Ottawa Hospital.
Absolutely. We see it every day where people who have been touched by the hospital and have been looking for a way to give back and maybe new to philanthropy, right? Maybe of an age and stage in life where they couldn't support charities, but they recognize the important role that the Ottawa Hospital perhaps has recently played in their life and decided to make a charitable gift. And you're right, we have many longtime donors, people who have been giving for years, people who are monthly donors that give over time. And it's a combination of those longstanding donors and new donors to the hospital and new donors to the foundation that continue kind of this groundswell of support for the hospital, but helps the foundation support the hospital to provide great equipment, to fund innovative research, and have great facilities.
Mm-hmm. Tim, is your team all back at the foundation, or are you still working remotely?
Yeah, so we're like a lot of businesses. Of course, we take our lead from the Ottawa Hospital. So we've been impacted, say, around as kind of a quote-unquote non-essential service. So we've been limited to coming in the office. But we have a bit of a hybrid model. We have staff in the office now. We have storefront offices at the general and the civic campus, so people can pop in during business hours and say hello to a foundation staff member or make a donation. But yeah, we're like most businesses, a little bit of a hybrid. Some are in, some are out, and a bit of flexibility to work from home as well.
One of the reasons I was asking is because I know how impactful it is, especially in your role, to see people coming and going from the Ottawa Hospital and really get to hear even some of their stories.
For sure. And I would say that, that is one of the parts that has been difficult with COVID. We talk to donors every day, all day, on the phone, Zoom calls, Teams calls, but nothing really replaces that opportunity to have someone popping in the office, meeting with the caregivers, meeting with physicians, meeting with nurses, hearing firsthand. So it's a bit more difficult to get that direct feedback today, but we absolutely are getting it, just in a little bit different format.
Mm-hmm. I always see the foundation staff as almost this matchmaker, people that really want to make a difference for the Ottawa Hospital. And then on the other side of it, you get to know the physicians, you get to know the nurses and the staff and the researchers, making their whole life's work about making things easier for people here, especially in the Ottawa area, and that matchmaking opportunity. It's very rewarding, isn't it, Tim?
I'm glad you brought that up because it's probably one of the greatest parts of my job is matching up the interests of the donor. For a donor to say, "Here's what I was thinking," and then to be able to look into the hospital and say, where's the area of greatest need that not only meets that donor's interest, but also meets the needs of the institution, meets the needs of our research institute at the Ottawa Hospital, or helps purchase a piece of equipment. But it's not a transaction. I really look at that as a dialogue, an opportunity to understand the donors, their needs, their wants, their interests, how they want to make a difference, and then just pair that with an institutional need.
For sure. And then you add on this thank you opportunity. I just think that's it's needed more now than ever, I think, Tim.
Oh, it is. And it's kind of why we recreated our gratitude award program, an opportunity to close that loop, where people are feeling grateful for the care that they've provided. They want to recognize a team in the hospital. They want to recognize an individual in the hospital. Our gratitude award program, and again, as you said, it can be found on either ohfoundation.ca or thankyoutoh.ca. People can go in and you can type the name of the individual or a particular floor or department, and that can be all done virtually through our website.
Mm-hmm. And I think those personal stories, I think if you've stood at the bedside or you've been in a bed at the Ottawa Hospital, you just know the great care that you're getting, and thanking all of those incredible professionals is a wonderful thing to do. You're going to join me a little bit later. We're going to chat with an incredible couple, Dan and Jenny, and share their story with the Ottawa Hospital. So I hope you'll stay with me, Tim, as we share their story. And you're going to come back and we'll connect a little bit later in the show today.
For sure. It's a great story, and look forward to listening.
Absolutely. Tim Kluke, President and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. And you will definitely not want to miss the story of Dan and Jenny. Stay with us here on An Hour to Give. Thanks for staying with us here on An Hour to Give. One of the things that I value so much is when people come on this show and tell their personal story. And today we're going to be featuring the Ottawa Hospital and the story of Dan McMillan and Jenny Chen. Hello to you both.
Hello, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Let me ask you, Dan, I understand that you were diagnosed with cancer. Take me back to the early days.
Well, the early days. Well, I guess I didn't actually know what was going on. I had early on, I kind of developed this little rash all over myself, and around in 2019 December, and my lymph nodes were a little bit swollen. And then I'd gone to the doctor, and my family doctor, and they said, Dan, I think this is just your body fighting this viral infection that you had. And I went, all right. So home I went, and then a little bit while later, Jenny noticed that things were getting a little bit worse on my lymph nodes. They were getting a little bit bigger, and she kind of forced me to go get a second opinion around, I guess, February of 2020, just right before the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. Right now, I want to give credit to La Vie Executive Health and their medical team who saw me very quickly. And they suspected it was lymphoma almost immediately. And within a month, I'd already had my bone marrow biopsy scheduled. And by April, I had my first meeting with Dr. Bensbruckler in the oncology at Ottawa Hospital. And that's when they officially diagnosed me with SLL, or small lymphocytic lymphoma, mm-hmm. kind of basically a cancer of the immune system.
And Jenny, take me to that time for you. You see Dan, he's not maybe feeling 100% well, and you do urge him to get that second opinion. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, and what's funny is that Dan and I, we were just friends at that time. So around, Christmas 2019, we were celebrating the holidays with friends, and I just noticed that he had these two growths on the side of his neck, and you never know, especially as a friend, you never really know how to bring it up. Hey, I'd noticed, are these things normal, right? And so over time, I noticed that they were getting bigger, and paired with Dan's body rash, basically, he was like, no, my family doctor says it's just part of a viral infection, and I'm good. And so over the next couple of months, it just didn't seem normal to me. So I just said, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I really think you should get a second opinion. And so he was referred by a friend to La Vie, and they were great. And immediately, almost that same appointment, they suspected that it was lymphoma. And I remember Dan calling me and just being like, okay, they're referring me to the Ottawa Hospital, and I don't know what's going on, but I don't want you to worry, but thank you so much for forcing me to do this, because I probably would have waited a few more months before really taking it seriously. So yeah, it's really tough to be somebody to encourage someone else to get these things looked at.
And Dan, do you remember that phone call to Jenny?
Oh yeah, very clearly. It was tough because, well, in my mind anyways, I was going 1,000 miles an hour, and it's like I just ran into a brick wall. And I remember telling Jenny, I said, gosh, this is what they told me. And I was very grateful to her for pushing me to go get that second opinion, because without it, I obviously wouldn't have been catching it quite that early.
Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, Jenny, Dan tells you that he's going to be treated at the Ottawa Hospital. What's your first thought?
Well, I just said, whatever it is, I'll bring you, to every appointment, for every blood test, I commit to him. We were, the best of friends. So I said, whatever you're going through. And also understanding that, with it must come a huge pile of anxiety, right? For Dan, who is pretty private when it comes to dealing with these types of things. So I just wanted him to know that he could lean on me, because I'm the opposite. I'm like an open book. I'll ask for help every step of the way. So yeah, I just wanted to gently remind him that, he wasn't alone in this.
And Dan, take me to the first time you're walking in the doors of the Ottawa Hospital for your first treatment.
Well, it was COVID now was in order. And I remember just getting ready for my appointment. Jenny, as she said, she wouldn't let me go by myself. So she dropped me off at the front door. She went to park somewhere, and I started walking in with my mask on to a little bit of a lineup, actually, when you got into the Ottawa Hospital, because now everybody had to be screened and going that way, which is fine. I literally had no idea what I was expecting when I go through those doors, other than whatever I WebMD'd myself, which I stopped doing after a while.
Right.
And then I went in, I sat down, and on the second floor, and I didn't wait very long. Dr. Bensbrookler saw me right away, so I went into the nice little room they had, and they were very good. And then I said, listen, since I don't have anybody here with me, I hope it's okay, but I want to record all of my meetings, so that way I don't forget anything. And when I'm sharing this information with friends and family, I can give a more accurate depiction of what it is. It's Sam, it's crazy. I have them all recorded, and every once in a while I listen to them, and I could hear how nervous I was, because I'm not generally a gentleman that'll stammer over what he's saying, but I did a lot of repetitive questioning in that point.
How badly did you want to be in that room with him, Jenny?
Very. It was really hard. Like Dan said, it's a different experience, especially in COVID, because you literally drop them off at the door, and there's no coffee shops open. There's nothing. So I'm literally parked on the street and like counting the minutes until Dan, texts me to pick him up. And we did learn that best practice of recording these appointments through a friend who had gone through a similar experience with his mom. And we wrote down like all these questions to ask, but of course, just like Dan either forgets to ask one of them because it's just a conversation between him and Dr. Ben Sprookler. But you can't even be there to hold their hand, right? But to be quite honest, Sam, like I didn't. I laughed because Dan is the type of person who gets on a plane, sits next to a stranger, and ends up being best friends with them. So same thing. I mean, like the staff at the medical daycare unit at the Ottawa Hospital were amazing. Like I know this because every single time Dan walked out those doors after his appointment, however long or short they were, he knew every single thing about every single nurse. And so, like, including, like, what their hobbies are, what they did on the weekend, what their family life was like. So it actually made me super grateful for the individual care that was obviously provided by the hospital, especially during a pandemic, right?
So the gratitude was there immediately, Dan, for the care and support you were receiving.
Absolutely, 100%.
And when you think back to maybe one of those staff members, is there someone that stands out for you?
See, the thing is that they were. It was me sitting down, listening, and like watching what they were doing in those particular moments. I don't want to single one person out because it wouldn't be fair, because of how great they were. Watching how one person would dominate and say, no, double check this, look at this, double check your tag, what's this person's birthday, matches this. And then in amongst all of that chaos, watching them work with all of the patients that are around me, one would just say, oh, well, this is the first time here for you, absolutely. And then we just banter back and forth about how one of their children is enjoying at home learning. And I said, really, your children are? And she laughs, the children are, I'm not. And or we talked about when one person they enjoyed golfing, and we had long conversations about that, and or that the new house they just bought, and they just started making a new home with them and their family. So anything that would divert my attention from what was happening to me at that point.
And, Jenny, I can only imagine you as well had a lot of gratitude for the staff and everyone that was supporting Dan through this challenging time. And I know there's an opportunity for our listeners and for everyone in Ottawa to visit thankyoutoh.ca. And you also wanted to support the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dan and I have always been big supporters of the Ottawa Hospital, along with, many other organizations in our community. And we're both the type of people who like to lean on gratitude when things happen in our lives, right? Like almost like a way of recalibrating the universe. So, when Dan got sick, it was just natural for us to give back to the hospital as a way to say, like, thanks for saving Dan's life. And so, even last year, we decided as a family to be ambassadors, for the President's Breakfast and actively help in raising funds just for the Ottawa Hospital and raising awareness, right, for the amazing work that the Ottawa Hospital does. Jennifer Van Noort and her team are super kind to give us these opportunities to help share our stories with others and encourage people also who are living through this. And, just through the process, Dan's received so many kind words from past and present donors who received the letter with, our story on it, for instance, or hear of us on the radio, like on your show and on podcasts. So it's great.
And I love your story because it isn't over yet. You started off as friends. You've sort of given us a bit of a hint there, but we're going to come back and share more of your story. Dan McMillan and Chen are going to stay with us here on An Hour to Give as we talk about the Ottawa Hospital. Stay with us, everyone. We are coming back to An Hour to Give and carrying on an incredible story that we're telling about Dan McMillan and Chen. And the Ottawa Hospital has certainly been very impactful in their lives. And, you know, Dan, we were sharing about your treatment and how Jenny cared for you through this. And at the beginning of the story, you talked about how you were friends at the beginning of all this. Where does it stand now, Dan?
Well, we've moved it a little bit, I would have to say, from friendship. I want to say something, though, first, is that this incredible friend of mine, built an army for me. She went out and had T-shirts printed with my name on it, and she delivered it to all my friends, and she got clippets from them, sending me well wishes and cheersing me on my way to beating cancer. And she put a video together for me so that I had something to actually watch when I went for my first treatment. But I digress. We quickly realized that our friendship was growing into something much, much more. And last September, when we took a little trip to Prince Edward County, Jenny proposed to me.
Wow. And
I was very happily accepted. And just this past September, we got married in our front living room with our kids.
Okay, Jenny, this is an incredible story. So tell me how this all happens.
Every time we talk about it, I cry. Like my eyes are tearing up right now. So I guess it's a good thing, right? Like it's because it's really like it really was from the heart. But I mean, like Dan and I met at work over a decade ago. We became, really great friends. We still consider each other best friends, as I said, and we've seen each other go through good times and bad times, which was a really great foundation for when we finally decided, like, hey, do you see yourself with anyone else? No? Okay, let's do this. But when Dan started his treatment, he had only told probably a couple handfuls of people. And, what I realized was he really didn't know how many people within his immediate circle were there and had his back. So like Dan said, I wanted to make sure he knew this going into his first chemo treatment. I wasn't going to be there. Nobody was allowed there. I even called the what is it called, Dan? The medical daycare unit?
Yes.
Yeah. Where Dan had his first 5-hour chemo session to ask if I could, be there, if he could be placed next to a window so that we could all like group together underneath. And unfortunately, just like from a capacity standpoint, they couldn't accommodate that, which is totally understandable. So alternatively, I just wanted everybody to gather around and show support through like a 2-minute video of Dan's the tequila guy, so that we're all cheersing with a tequila shot for that. But through it, like through every single treatment, I drove him to every chemo treatment, every blood test, and he just he powered through. Like one thing, what I love about Dan is that he really just does. He's a little bit stubborn, right? But he does everything he needs to get through whatever it is that he's going through. And the first few days, Sam, that he had chemo were manageable because he's on, medication and everything like anti-nausea pills and steroids. But by the beginning of the 4th day, he starts having like really low energy, a lot of pain around the injections. He sometimes couldn't even get out of a car or climb a flight of stairs at home. So I knew it was so important for him and his mental health and motivation to get through each treatment. So I started planning things for us each week to look forward to, like date nights, long carb rides to like nowhere because it's COVID and we couldn't actually go anywhere. But just anything for Dan to feel normal and have somebody to look forward to. And I thought, you know what? I can't picture myself without this man. I can't picture myself without my best friend. So I'm just going to propose to him. And I think, Dan, you forgot how you were feeling because actually like 3 or 4 days following treatment. So Dan wasn't feeling great in Prince Edward County. And I had this whole proposal prepared. I had a photographer. I had the hotel we were staying at prepare their patio for me. And I really didn't know how it was going to go or even if I should just because he wasn't feeling great. But I did it and, he didn't leave me hanging, which is a good thing.
That's beautiful. And Dan, you're in the middle of this treatment and, the next visit to the Ottawa Hospital, did you share your good news?
The thing is with the nurses, yes, I did share what went through, which was good because the next one was a rough one for me, and just rough because all the symptoms that I thought I was going to be able to deal with, I had a harder time dealing with. But at least we were able to share a nice smile and a laugh at the hospital about of course, they said, like, didn't you think it was weird that your wife had a photographer coming? Because we went with the guys that it was her birthday weekend. And no, I said, no, it's kind of normal. Jenny would have had a photographer there for her birthday weekend. And they all looked at me and said, it's just the way she is. I've come to understand that. But yes, I did get to share my good news with them.
And Jenny, take me to that, back to that day where you sort of urged Dan to get a second opinion and you were worried about him. Could you have ever imagined that your life would take this turn?
No, I didn't. And I really think that, the one good thing, at least for us, that came out of this pandemic was the fact that we were in each other's bubble. Like, we obviously had to be even more super careful when Dan was diagnosed because we were mindful that he was now immunocompromised. So he was stuck with me. We spent a lot of time together. I think that actually made our relationship much stronger. And yeah, I just, I will say though that Dan's palate changed. Like, we're foodies and we tried to support our local restaurant businesses as much as we could through COVID. But with each treatment, his palate was changing, but he would still want to feel normal. So we'd, order all this food or have a nice dinner planned. And then he'd get a wave of nausea halfway through supper. And then I would just be like, okay, no, everything's fine. Everything is normal. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad. So I just casually ate all the food that we ordered or drank both of our glasses of wine. So, like, Sam, we've heard of, like, pregnancy sympathy weight, but I tease Dan now that I put on, like, all this extra weight on top of my COVID weight just to make sure that he could feel normal.
Wow. I saw a picture of you, too, and I can't see two happier people ever in a photo. I mean, you radiate joy, both of you. And, Dan, when you first got that diagnosis, did you ever think that was possible?
No, it was the first part and was very difficult. I was so thankful that she was there. She also urged me to open up a bit more about something that I never talk about myself, especially not my private life ever. And it was the thing that COVID really it was tough because I had my daughter wasn't able to bubble with me, and I actually had to tell my daughter. Well, my son was at home with me, but I had to tell my daughter over FaceTime what was going on, and but throughout the whole time, Jenny has always been there to just reassure me and help me to understand that it's okay to feel these things and to have this conversation with others. Mm-hmm. But no, at the beginning, no, I didn't think it was going to be this possible. And I am truly blessed to have her in my life.
Oh, beautifully said. And, you know, Jenny, when I think about all the healthcare workers and everyone that cared for Dan and all the donors that have really allowed those great tools to be available for the professionals at the Ottawa Hospital, what would you say to everyone who had a hand in caring for Dan?
We're definitely so grateful. And like Dan has said it before over and over again, and I'll keep saying it too, that, you know, the hospital saved his life and the life of our family, right? Like between us, we have 4 kids and a golden doodle puppy now named Eugene. And really, this is our way. Like anything we can do to give back is our way of saying thank you. And I will say that my learning through this as a caregiver is that everyone is going to share in the Ottawa Hospital and its resources at different stages of life, whether they realize it now or not. So if our community wants world-class care like what Dan received, you know, we all have to pitch in. No matter who you are in the community, you or someone you care about will need the help of the Ottawa Hospital at one point.
Well, beautifully said, Jenny, for sure. And we only have about 30 seconds, Dan. What would you say to Jenny for all of her support during this time?
Well, I owe her my life, and now she has my heart, and I have hers. So life will be just fine going forward, forever.
Well, that's beautifully said, too. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dan McMillan and Jenny Chen, sharing about your story for the Ottawa Hospital and all the great treatment, of course, and care that you received there. And if you also want to reach out to the Ottawa Hospital and show your gratitude, you can contact them at thankyoutoh.ca. Coming up, Tim Kluke is going to join us again, President and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. Stay with us here on An Hour to Give. And we are back with Tim Kluke from the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, their president and CEO. Tim, what an incredible story from Dan and Jenny.
What a remarkable story on so many levels, mm-hmm. right? That you understand kind of their love for each other and how they stood beside each other through this remarkable time in Dan's life. But also, one of the great takeaways is, why we're so fortunate here in Ottawa is we've got, a world-leading cancer center here in Ottawa, and the ability to treat Dan and to have him here on the other side talking about his experience.
Mm-hmm. And I think so often, people drive by the Ottawa Hospital and it's a big building, a big institution. But when someone like Dan and Jenny share their story, you realize more and more, and if you've ever had a personal experience at the Ottawa Hospital, you know for sure it's about the people, Tim.
It is, and everyone that you see within the walls of the Ottawa Hospital has a story. Someone's either, especially someone from the public, right? They're either there for themselves and seeking medical attention. They're there to support a loved one who's going through a particularly challenging time, and often facing a diagnosis or a treatment plan with uncertainty. And I think that as I reflect on Dan's experience and the experience of so many others, especially when they hear the word cancer, is that you're wanting every option available to you. And often cancers can be very difficult, and in some cases, some of the traditional methods have been unsuccessful. So getting treatment at a place like the Ottawa Hospital, which is a large teaching research hospital, you know you're going to have access to some of the very best healthcare practitioners in the country, if not the world, because they've chosen to come to Ottawa. But also you're going to have access to the latest treatment opportunities. And that's whether it's participating in a research clinical trial or getting access to unique and novel therapies. That's what sets us apart at the Ottawa Hospital, I think, is the ability to offer that hope for patients.
For sure. And as I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking, so often in our lives, we're sort of trained to think, oh, there's great treatments at, in other cities or in other countries. When the reality is there's great work being done on Smythe Road and Carling Avenue, and it's at the Ottawa Hospital.
It's, you're so true, Sam. We talk to some people and they say, if I ever got sick, I would go here or I would go there. And often you don't have a choice. When you get sick, and in talking to families and grateful patients, they recognize the importance to get treatment at home. And the fact that people, we've all been sick and you want to be at home. And our goal at the Ottawa Hospital is to provide such a breadth of service with the best talent that we can recruit to this city so people don't have to leave Ottawa, that you can get the best-in-class medicine right here in Ottawa at the Ottawa Hospital. And that's what we deserve. Here we are in the nation's capital, and I don't think we should stand for anything less.
Mm-hmm. And the investment that we know donors have made and continue to make, I think it's always a bit surprising to many people, Tim, that really everything that's happened inside those walls in many cases is because of donors.
Donors make a huge difference. And if you think of the provincial government's support of healthcare, which is critical, we're blessed here in Canada, but that provides for the standard of care. And if you want to consider other treatment modalities that may require robotic surgery, may require specialized equipment, these are items that are purchased through donor dollars. And these donor dollars are critical in providing the latest and greatest service and technology to our patients here. Similarly with research, the province doesn't support research out of the hospital's base budget. Our researchers compete for research grants with institutions across the country. And those grants fund the best research. And we have a higher than average rating of receiving those grants because we're doing good research here in Ottawa. And research, as a foundation, we support research in a significant way. Often those government grants come with a matching requirement. So our researchers may compete, may receive a significant grant for a particular research study, but that's when the research institute turns to our foundation and says, can you match this support to allow this study to move forward? So whether it's equipment, facilities, research, that's the role where the community can play a significant role with their community giving to the Ottawa Hospital.
I really value that you've explained that to us, because I think it's something many of us just take for granted, that every hospital is sort of cookie cutter, and that's just not the reality. Tim, let's walk through some of the ways, and we know thank you, TOH.ca is a great way to give back, especially when you're thinking about maybe someone that has been cared for or someone that's touched your heart. Such a great way to give back to the healthcare workers that have given us so much, especially over this last couple of years. There's so many other ways to give. Walk us through some options.
Sure. So great options. As I said earlier in an earlier segment, one of our pleasures representing the Ottawa Hospital is to work with donors to ensure that they get the greatest impact for their charitable gift. And we're more than happy to have a conversation. But as we approach the holidays as well, people may be thinking about maybe a special one-time gift here at the end of the calendar year leading into the hospital, can of course go to thankyoutoh.ca to make that contribution. Something else that we find in individuals that's really manageable for them is we have many donors who are monthly donors. Set it up just like an automatic withdrawal that you may have for one of your local bills or what have you. But becoming a monthly donor is really important because what it allows us to do as a foundation is kind of make commitments on specific projects, knowing we have this monthly donor support coming in. So it's very critical, and it's something I would encourage. Those of you that might think of a year-end gift, well, what about turning that gift into a monthly gift? And you can, again, do that on thankyoutoh.ca. As we think of the plans for the future at the Ottawa Hospital, and as your listeners well know, we're going to be building a replacement to the current Civic Hospital on Carling Avenue. And as people think about the future and think about the community 100 years ago that planned for this existing Civic, we've been blessed over many years where people have made a gift through their will. They've made a commitment today, and I've worked with a number of donors now who are saying this new hospital is critical to my grandkids and their kids' futures. So people have made provisions in their will. And again, it's something that can be easily done in working with your financial advisor or a lawyer. And we have language that donors can actually take to their lawyer for inclusion in their will. So that is another great way to kind of pay it forward at a future date. And we talked earlier, Sam, too, about the Gratitude Award Program, which is a program where you can recognize someone in the hospital who has touched you and your family personally. And all this information is at thankyoutoh.ca. And if you want to have a conversation, we'd be happy to have a conversation.
Tim, I'm listening you explain all these different options for giving, and, I just can't imagine you doing anything else. Can you?
Other than representing the hospital?
Yeah.
I would say it's been an absolute pleasure for almost the past 20 years now to be working in healthcare here in Ottawa. I've had the pleasure of working right across Canada and in the U.S. In healthcare. And I view this role at the Ottawa Hospital as one of privilege. I think it's a great privilege to represent the Ottawa Hospital. I feel proud to do that. And I know my foundation team members feel exactly the same way. The hospital has a tremendous vision for this city. We're surrounded by great researchers and great physicians. So in some respects, my job's really easy. But it's one that I certainly enjoy.
Mm-hmm. And your team has done an incredible job. And, it's exciting to think about a new hospital for this city.
It is. We're coming up on 100 years ago during a pandemic where the existing Civic, it was built. So it took the Spanish flu to provide the momentum for a city to build a big city hospital. And it was Mayor Harold Fisher at the time who said, we're going to build a hospital out in a farmer's field. And the media, the newspapers at the time called it Fisher's Folly, thought it was a big mistake. But when the hospital opened 100 years ago, then the headline was, it's Fisher's Foresight. And it was a remarkable story about a community rallying. And here we are today, in the midst of another pandemic, planning for the future hospital on Carling Avenue. So we've kind of come full circle here, and it's just such a wonderful city building project for our community, and one that is going to stand a test of time for the next 50 to 100 years.
Oh, I'm so glad we ended that way. That's great information for all of us to have, and very inspiring at the same time. Tim Kluke, thanks so much for joining us today on An Hour to Give.
Thanks, Sam. It was a wonderful day for the Ottawa Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Kluke is the president and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital Foundation. And I have to thank as well Jenny and Dan for telling their story. Truly a love story, not only about the Ottawa Hospital, but about their own love story here with us today on An Hour to Give. And thank you for joining us. We couldn't do this without you. Stay tuned to City News.